Good morning, everyone. I'm Penny with Specialty Outdoors, and this is the first time I've kind of put my face into one of my little videos. I am a Gore-Tex specialist, an outdoor equipment repair specialist, or rather outdoor clothing repair specialist. But like everyone else, I'm following the call to make masks for our frontline workers out there. I like to sew efficiently. I like to sew fast. I don't like a lot of fiddling with little steps that maybe aren't necessary. So I use a lot of finger pressing for my masks, and I don't use a lot of pinning. And I've simplified the cutting a little bit so that I can move these through here pretty fast. So the mask that I'm making is one of these pleated surgical masks with fabric ties. I'm using the fabric ties and not elastic because the healthcare people I'm talking to say they prefer the ties. They're more comfortable, they're more adjustable, they hold up longer through washing. This mask has a filter pocket in it, and so you can put whatever filter you want in there. There's a lot of information out there with the two different styles of masks and who wants what kind of materials, and some organizations are saying they only want a certain thing. Right now, because I'm choosing to isolate extremely, I'm not going out looking for different materials. I'm not putting pressure on warehouses by ordering things. So I'm just going with what I have, which is tons and tons of quilting cotton that was left to me by someone special. And I used, for filters, I used some really like the thinnest, non-fusible, lightest weight Pellon stabilizer. Obviously something has to be breathable and has to be washable. There's, a lot of different things that people are using. You can look all that up online. The CDC says that a cloth mask is 40% better than nothing. Again, you can go to the CDC website and read their recommendations there. There's a lot of good information online, but I'm going with what I have. So quilting cotton, I have lots of it. I've tried to streamline this process, and I'll show you what I do. What you're going to need to start with is you're going to need to start with a 14 by 9 inch rectangle of cotton, and then you're going to want to cut 2 strips of cotton. These are not cut on the bias, they're just cut on the straight grain, and these are 35 inches long by 1.5 inches wide. So that's all we need to do this. The first thing we're going to do with our rectangle here is we are going to do a rolled hem on the edge. And if you don't know what a rolled hem is, you just roll something twice and then you stitch it down, and then you've got a finished edge. I did start these by using a serger and then top stitching it, but that was 2 steps. And if you do a finger pressed rolled hem, then you have just 1 step to finish it. This particular piece has a selvage on one end, so I only need to do the rolled hem on the other short edge. So really quick, how's to actually do the rolled hem. Again, this is my short edge of the fabric. I'm going to fold it once, and I'm going to fold it a second time. I'm not ironing, I'm not using any little gadgets, I'm not using any pins to hold it. Just tuck it under your presser foot, press it with your finger. There we have our rolled hem. Okay, for this next step, we are going to need our iron. This is the only part of this that I will use an iron in, but this is where we put our pleats in and we get it all ready to go. So I'm going to make sure it's nice and flat because that makes it just easier to work with. And this rolled hem edge is going to be our top edge of the flap for the pocket. So we're going to fold our bottom edge up almost all the way to the top. Okay, this one's not perfectly square, so we're gonna work with it. And then we're gonna fold our pocket edge down over. So there we have our pocket edge. And we're gonna press it. Now, if you want, you can put some clips in this top edge here. Just kind of hold the top in a position. And now we're going to put our pleats into this. And this is saves you from measuring. And I saw this online. This was a great idea. Fold it in half and press your crease. And then take your halves and fold them in again. And press your crease. Don't press out the middle crease. These are just mark lines. So now you have 3 creases in this. So let's make our pleats. We can go 1. We can go 2. And then we can do our 3rd pleat here. And just press your pleats again. And if you press them from the back side also, this just keeps it really firm, so it's easy to work with. If you are an experienced sewist and want to try this, you can actually do this without your clips and just press it on both sides, and it will more or less hold its position. One thing I want to point out to you is that here's the top of the mask, and the pleats face downwards. This is really important, and this keeps the any debris from falling into them. So make sure you're always orienting with the pocket on top. So next we're going to go to our sewing portion where we put the straps on it, and you'll need your 2 35-inch by 1.5-inch cotton straps for the next part. Okay, so for the next step, we're going to be sewing the strap onto our mask, and we'll take our binding strip here, and what I do is I measure up 12.5 inches from one end. I have a little measurer here on my table here, and I'm going to make a little snip. That's how I mark it, at 12.5 inches up. And so what we do is we take our mask here, and we want to line the right side of the strip up with the back of the mask, and we want to line this bottom corner. Make sure this is the bottom corner here, and this is the top of your mask with the fold on it. We want the bottom corner to be lined up with the mask. And that's where we're going to just stitch the binding on with a 1/4-inch seam allowance. Now it's really important that you have the short piece be on the bottom of the mask, because the long piece has to be up on the head for the adjustable tie for whoever's wearing it. So the way that we sew this on with just finger pressing and no bias binding, folding, and no ironing and all of that, it's a hand manipulation technique, and I'll show you how it works. Okay, so for putting your binding onto your mask, we now have the mask. We have a little 1/4-inch seam here, and we have our binding strip. And you want to make sure you lay this out with the binding seam facing away from your machine and because you're going to be folding the binding towards the inside of the machine. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this little end and we're going to fold it down, and then we're going to fold it in, and then we're going to fold it over itself. So we have a little finished end there. And again, I'm not pinning it, I'm just using my fingers to hold it. Then you're going to turn your binding towards you, and you can see that you can fold it in. You get your two little folds inside, and then you fold it on top of itself. You can use your finger to line it all up. And again, no ironing, no bias binder, just your fingers. And then when you get down here to your mask, you just want to make sure you cover where you've sewn before. Do a little back stitch. These things are going to be worn and washed a lot, so you want to try and do strong construction. And I do have another video on my channel that shows specifically how to do this finger press binding if you want to look at a video just on that piece of it. And when I get to the other end, I'm going to do my little folds. And yeah, it's a bit fiddly, and the first couple times you do it, you're going to be kind of frustrated, but if you just practice, it will come really fast. And there we have our binding attached to our mask. Again, when you make these, make sure you put the short end of the binding on the bottom of the mask. There's the top of the mask, so that you have the long tie above the head. The measurement is 35 inches. It's 12 inches from the end of the binding to the bottom of the mask, and then the rest of it goes above the mask. You'll do the same thing on the other side. You'll put your binding on with a little 1/4 inch seam. Make sure you have the 12.5 inch piece at the bottom. There's a little bit of flip-flopping. You've got to make sure when you reverse the mask, which end of the tie is the short end on the bottom of the mask. And then you put your tie on with the finger pressed binding, and then you're good to go. Good luck with your sewing, everyone.